Somewhere in northern Mozambique, right now, a man is walking through dry woodland making a sound. It is not a word. It is a low rolling trill followed by a grunt, and he learned it from his father, who learned it from his. He is not talking to another person. There is nobody else for a mile. He is calling a bird, and within a few minutes, the bird answers. It is a greater honeyguide, and it is completely wild. Nobody caught it. Nobody raised it. Nobody has ever fed it by hand or bred it or kept it in a cage. It has no owner, and it is not tame in any sense of the word. And it is about to lead him deliberately to a wild bee's nest that he could not have found on his own. This is not a trick, and it is not a legend. It has been measured, filmed, and published in science 3 separate times over 34 years. And it is the only relationship of its kind on Earth. We have hundreds of arrangements with animals. We bred every one of them. We took a wild population, selected it for generations, and reshaped it until it fitted us. Dogs, cattle, horses, chickens, silkworms, every single one. The honeyguide is not that. Nobody made this bird. Its genome has not been managed. It is exactly as wild as a hawk, and yet it seeks out human beings on purpose and cooperates with them for a shared reward. There is no other wild species that does this with us, not one. So how old is it? Nobody can put a date on it because a partnership does not fossilize, but you can bracket it, and the bracket is remarkable. Start at the near end. Every animal we domesticated, we did recently. Dogs are the oldest, and they are around 15,000 years. Sheep, goats, cattle, horses, all of them younger. On the scale of our species, every one of those is a modern arrangement. Now the far end. The honeyguide's whole business model depends on us being able to open a hive, and you cannot open a wild hive without smoke. Thousands of defending bees make it simply impossible. So this partnership cannot be older than our control of fire. And the strongest evidence for that reaches back roughly 1 million years. That is the window. Somewhere between 1 million years ago and now, a wild bird and a hominin worked out that they were more useful to each other than apart. Which means this may well be the oldest working relationship we have with any species on Earth, and it could beat the dog by 2 orders of magnitude. And unlike the dog, we never owned our end of it for a single day. So the obvious question is how, and the first 3 answers everybody reaches for are all wrong. The first assumption is that it must be tame somehow, half domesticated, habituated at least, the way pigeons are habituated to a square. But habituation means an animal has stopped reacting to you. This bird is doing the opposite. It is initiating. It comes looking for people. It calls at them until they respond, and if they start walking, it flies ahead and waits. That is not tolerance. That is recruitment. The second assumption is that somebody trained it generations ago, and the skill has been passed down bird to bird. That one collapses spectacularly, and we will come back to why, because it is the strangest fact in this entire story. The third assumption is the one you have probably heard in a documentary. The honeyguide, the story goes, evolved this behavior with a honey badger. It leads badgers to nests. The badger rips the hive open with its claws, and humans simply stepped into a partnership that already existed. It is a wonderful story. It is almost certainly not true. In 1990, a group of researchers went through the entire body of evidence for honeyguides leading honey badgers and found that it rested on anecdote and repetition. Despite decades of people watching honeyguides specifically, verified observations of a bird guiding a badger are essentially absent. Meanwhile, guiding to humans has been documented over and over across thousands of kilometers in many separate cultures, so the partnership does not appear to be with badgers. As far as the evidence goes, it is with us. Which raises the real question. If nobody trained it, how does a wild bird and a human being agree on anything? The answer is that they have a shared vocabulary. Both sides signal and both sides understand. Start with what the bird says. In 1989, researchers working with born honey gatherers in Kenya established that a guiding honeyguide is not simply flying toward food and hoping you follow. It carries information. The direction it flies tells you where the nest is. The height it perches at tells you roughly how far you still have to go. The perches get lower as you get closer, and when you arrive, it changes its call and its behavior entirely, which is how you know to stop looking ahead and start looking up. The born gatherers told the researchers that finding a nest with a bird takes roughly 1/3 of the time it takes without one. That is not a folk belief. Their search times were recorded, now the other direction. What do we say to it? In 2016, a team working with Yao honey hunters in Mozambique tested the specific call those men use, that rolling trill and grunt. They walked the same routes twice, once making the call, once making unrelated human sounds of the same volume. With the honeyguide call, the probability of being guided by a bird roughly doubled, and the probability of actually being led to a nest and getting honey went up more than 3 times. The bird is not simply noticing that a human is nearby. It is distinguishing the sound that means, I am hunting honey and I will open the nest. from the sound of a human being who happens to be walking past. And then it gets better. In 2023, the same line of work compared honey hunters in different countries. The Yao in Mozambique use the trill and grunt. The hadza in Tanzania use a melodic whistle. Completely different sounds, no shared origin. And the birds prefer their local one. A honeyguide in Tanzania responds more strongly to the hadza whistle than to the Mozambican call, and the reverse holds in Mozambique, which means the signal is not a fixed instinct on the bird's side. It is learned locally from the humans in that place. Different regions have different conventions, and the birds have picked up the local one. There is a word for a communication system that is shared, arbitrary, and varies by region. It is not a word we usually get to use about a wild animal talking to us. Now, the fact that breaks the whole thing open. The greater honeyguide is a brood parasite. It does not build a nest, and it does not raise chicks. A female finds the burrow of a bee-eater or a kingfisher, slips in, and lays her egg among theirs. The honeyguide chick hatches early, and it hatches equipped. The tip of its bill carries a sharp hook, and it uses that hook on the other chicks in the dark until it is the only one left. It is then raised, fed, and fledged by a pair of birds of an entirely different species, who have no idea what they are feeding. Sit with what that means. That bird has never met its mother. It has never met any adult of its own kind that was responsible for it. There is no family group, no flock it grew up in, no elder that took it out and showed it how any of this is done. Nobody taught it to work with us. There is no mechanism by which anybody could have. Whatever this behavior is, it comes out of a bird that was raised by strangers of another species in a hole in the ground, and it still knows to find a human being and start a conversation. So why does either side bother? Because neither one can do this alone, and both of them know it. The bird has an unusual ability. It can eat beeswax and digest it, which almost nothing else can. A wild bee's nest is, to a honeyguide, a warehouse full of food. And it is completely unable to get in. The nest is inside a tree cavity, defended by thousands of stinging bees. Behind wood, the bird cannot break. We are the opposite. We can open it. We bring fire, we bring smoke, we bring an axe, and 40,000 bees become a manageable problem. What we cannot do is find it. A single hive inside a hollow tree, somewhere in 100 square kilometers of identical woodland, is essentially invisible. The bird has already flown that woodland and knows exactly where every nest is. One side has the map, the other side has the key, and the prize is worth it. For the hadza in Tanzania, honey is not a treat. It is one of the largest single sources of calories in the diet. High energy food that requires no cultivation and no hunt, in a landscape that offers very little of either. Although it is not a fairy tale, and it is worth being honest about that too, research with the hadza found that human hunters often deliberately withhold the wax afterwards, burning it, hiding it, taking everything, on the theory that a hungry honeyguide keeps working. Both sides are managing each other. But then, that is what a relationship between two species actually looks like. And here is what makes this urgent rather than merely charming. It is disappearing, not the bird. The greater honeyguide is doing fine as a species. What is disappearing is the conversation. Guiding survives only where people still hunt wild honey and still know the call. Where honey is bought in a shop or kept in managed hives, nobody goes into the woodland making that sound anymore. And within a generation or two, the local birds stop hearing it, stop answering, and the regional call goes quiet. Across much of Africa, where guiding was recorded a century ago, it no longer happens. The birds are still there. The trees are still there. Nobody's calling. Think about what is actually being lost. Every other partnership we have with an animal, we built by force. We selected, we penned, we bred, we reshaped. If dogs vanished tomorrow, we could, given enough time and enough wolves, do it again. This one we cannot rebuild. It was not made. It was negotiated by two wild species over a length of time we cannot measure, and it is held together by nothing except the fact that both sides keep showing up. It survives one way only, which is that somebody keeps making the sound and somebody keeps answering. So somewhere in northern Mozambique, right now, a man is walking through dry woodland making a noise his father taught him, and a bird that nobody owns, nobody trained, and nobody raised is coming to find him, because it has decided he is useful. There is no other animal on this planet that does that. We did not tame it. We did not breed it. We just learned to talk to it, and it learned to talk back. And the whole thing lasts exactly as long as we keep our half of the conversation going.